Natural fall is right here. So that's where that hair lives, and all this hair lives over there. The reason that's going to be important is because she doesn't want to spend a lot of time on her hair. So if I start cutting it off a natural fall, or if I cut it on an unnatural fall, that could add time to her getting it to lay right. And if I want to give her the least amount of work, she doesn't have to work too hard, I'm going to work off a little bit more of a natural fall. So that's one thing I want to discover, is what lives where. And then the next thing I want to discover is I'm looking at the curl pattern, is the top and the side. So you can see when I cut hair, I'm going to cut it really off a natural. So I see it come into the back here, and there's her, what we call no man's land. And then I see the sides and the back. If I take a comb and I put another comb on top or another straight line on top, I can see where the top is. So her parietal ridge, which sits up there, so that's really where the top is. And those are areas I want to know, just so I know if I'm trying to build weight or remove weight, that I take away from the back, the top, the sides. So I'll separate them in back, top, and sides. So same thing with the back of her head. I can set the comb right there on the back, so I can see her occipital bone, the high occipital there. I can set the comb here where it flattens out through the crown, so I can see where the low crown and high crown is. And then of course, our favorite one is the apex. So I can see where the exact high point of her head is. And so from there, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take away right along the parietal ridge from the middle of the crown. I'm going to separate the hair from the top and the sides. And there's not a whole lot of hair on this side. So I'm just going to give it a little comb over so I can work on this side first. And then this is where that sculpting foam comes into play, because it's now helping be a clip as well. So I'm going to work through here first. And as I work through here, I'll really want to take into consideration that area that I told you about that needs to be a little bit like, I'm going to take a little lighter and tighter. And as I work through here, I'm going to work in graduation, technically round graduation, because I am going to slightly over direct forward. With the round graduation though, I'm going to be using vertical sections. With the vertical sections on this right side, my fingers are going to be down. One of the big reasons for fingers down is naturally, I'm going to comb towards myself if my fingers are down. If my fingers were up, that would be awkward. I'd want to comb away from the face. So now I'm over directing in the opposite way of which I want to. Yes?
So being left-handed, how would you do it?
Being left-handed, so your fingers would be up. Right-handed, we're going down. For real. Alright, and then I'm just going to make sure I'm adjusted. Now, as I'm working in the salon, there's only one position for my chair. It goes up and down. It doesn't turn. So it's always in the mirror. That's really important for two reasons. For one, keeps you moving so you don't end up with varicose veins in a few years. Keeps your blood circulating. And for two, it keeps them feeling comfortable because they can see what's going on at all times. When you start turning guests away from the mirror, they're like, whoa, what are they doing back there? They get a little nervous. That's why at the color bar, we have no mirrors. So that way, they're not like, oh, what are they doing? It looks purple, because then it's like, they're freaking out. And then you're like, well, it does look purple, but I've been doing this for 10 years. I mean, am I off today? That's why we take mirrors away from the color bar, so they're not analyzing you. But in the hair cutting, we want to keep them in the mirror. So as I work through here, my sections are going to have a slight diagonal back, and I'm going to be working through on a vertical diagonal back section. Now as I take these first couple of sections here, and I'm not using any clip, what you're going to see is I'm going to be picking this hair up from both sides, but my last comb is always going to be towards the face. And I'm going to be cutting in here pretty tight, pulling the hair straight out from the head, and then cutting a nice solid line, 2 knuckles worth of hair. And with this hair being a little tighter on this side, it's going to be a little bit easier to control, but it's still going to have that little bit of fringiness because I did use some elevation. And then as I look at this, this is going to be an opportunity for later for me to come in and tune up some. So So that's going to be number 1. Now the key thing is these sections, I'm picking up my guide and I'm coming into my guide. These sections, I want these sections to be pretty small, maybe a comb in width, no wider than a comb, because I am doing precision cutting. And how you know if your sections may have been too big is going to depend on how much refinement you have to do. If you have to do a lot of refinement on a precision haircut, then you weren't as disciplined as you should have been. Because then that's the big discovery for me is when I had to do my first haircut certification for DJ. And I didn't know, like there was like 12 of us at the training. But at lunchtime, he's like, hey, I need to like check 2 people for the group. Can I check yours? And I'm like, sure. And then in front of the group, he's cross-checking my wet shape, and things weren't happening that were supposed to be. And I knew what it was. I was trying to work so quick. I was cutting corners. I was taking little shortcuts, which I thought were shortcuts, which actually just ended up being long cuts. You know, I got detention on that day. I had to stay after. So taking smaller sections and then working clean. Now as I'm in number 3, I'm only going to take number 2. So I pick up number 2, I leave number 1 out of the mix. So 3 goes into 2. So I'm using a traveling guide through here. I'm always going to check. I'm going to pull that hair out from the head. And then my finger angle is what's really creating the graduation. I got a slight angle on my fingers. Technically, I'm pulling this hair 90 degrees from the head. So when we talk about graduation, technically speaking, we always talk about graduation at being below 90. This is an example of where it's actually at 90. But I'm using my finger angle to create the graduation. So already I'm liking that. It's starting to look nice and lean through there. And she's got a lot of hair, so that's where I need to make sure I take my time and put my fingers at a nice angle so I can build up weight gradually, not get it happening too steep. If I go like this, I'm going to leave this too bulky at the top. So that's where when I'm using my fingers to create graduation, I can actually angle them as much or as little as I want. And then I'm just going to work up the head. Now one of the key things is I'm always slightly in front of my section because that's how my over direction is moving. It's moving slightly forward. I don't really have to think about over direction if I stay slightly in front of my section because I'm using my lower body to control that. I'm just going to push this hair out of the way. Now I'm coming, this is like number 5 into 4. I'm going to check for my guide each time, make sure I got a good guide. And I'm cutting 2 knuckles worth of hair. And it starts to take the bulk away from the ear. And it sits down and it has a very gradual buildup right through there. And now I'm just going to keep on working right through the back. When I start to get into this back area, there are going to be a couple things that I'll point out as I get into the hairline. Just combing that hair out of the way, taking the previous. So I'll pick up my guide just to keep everything clean, then I'll comb into my guide, pull that hair straight out of the head, check for a clue, and then cut 2 knuckles worth of hair. Now as I start to work down the hairline, things change because her head shape starts to go in. So I'm going to have her tip her head a little bit to the side, move the ear forward. I don't have a guide below, but I do have a guide above. So that's my guide, and then I'm going to move right in to the hairline. And this where as a right-hander, it can get a little tricky because now you got neck and shoulders, right? That's what we were talking about earlier. She brought hers too, go figure. So they move in through here. Just want to keep my section nice and clean. I'm going to be picking up, and I'm going to always comb into my guide. I don't even have one here, but I'll comb like I have one anyway. I got a little piece of one right there. And then my fingers are getting tighter. I'm still keeping my fingertips in and my knuckles away, so I'm still building graduation. And I got this last little bit. Have you guys ever watched any Mark Hayes cutting hair. Mark Hayes is the international creative director for Vidal Sassoon. So like, you know, DJ's here, Tracy Sacco sits. She's the United States director, that's DJ's mentor. Then you go above her, Mark Hayes, he's like the granddaddy. He'd be like right there where Vidal Sassoon is. One of the sickest haircutters on the planet, if not the sickest haircutter on the planet.
Who's that?
Mark Hayes.
Okay.
Hayes.
Is that the guy that does like the designs in there with the scissors and just cuts into it?
No, that's not Mark. That's not Mark Hayes. That's what's his name? It'll come to me in a minute. But he used to work for Vidal Sassoon as well. But yeah, he wears glasses. Yeah, Christopher Booker. I think that's Christopher Booker. But yeah, in the same cluster of people. They're kind of like the Bauhaus. When they split up, they all went and created things like Gerard, who's part of Hairbrained. You know, they're all kind of from the same roots. Angus Mitchell, Gerard, Tracy Sacco sits, DJ, Randy Taylor. Their roots are all in Vidal Sassoon. And that's kind of cool because when you think about it, Vidal Sassoon, when he came over here in the 60s, he brought a guy named Cyril with him. We know that guy as Paul Mitchell, but his real name is Cyril Mitchell. So he brought Cyril with him to America. And then eventually Cyril went off to create Paul Mitchell. So now I'm in the back here, and as I'm working through here, I just got a vertical section, still has a little bit of a diagonal, but I just wanted to separate that so you can see the width of the section, so still keeping it within the width of a comb. Is it going to take longer to do that? Yes. But where you do save time is you save time on fixing it later. You save time on refinement because you really constructed it the proper way. Just like building anything. If you build a house, is there shortcuts you can take? Sure. Is there cheaper sheetrock and nails and stuff you can buy? Sure. But ultimately, in the long run, you can build it once right, or you can build it twice. So I'm just working these lines, making sure I'm getting everything connected right up through the top. And I'm going to have her lean her head a little bit. So the reason I have her lean her head, because I need to get in the best position possible to give her the best haircut possible. And I'd rather have her lean her head and give her the best haircut and be maybe uncomfortable for a second than have to be trying to fix it later. That's that last little bit. And then in between the sections, I'll readjust her head so I can keep on moving. So these sections, I'm just going to continue these all the way across the head shape. And as I move through the back, I'm starting to work into like the occipital area. So I've got to take into consideration that her bone structure is there. I want to make sure I respect the bone structure.
Now, are you going to do the back plate more just like the graduation, or are you going to gradually get longer to go into the asymmetrical?
I'm going to do the same. I'm going to keep graduating it the same way. Okay. Once I get to the opposite side and I come back, I'm going to actually, it'll be kind of like they're crisscrossing. So I keep the sides more symmetrical, and then the top is going to be where the asymmetry all happens. Who said that? Cool. You threw your voice. I was like looking at everybody, trying to figure out who would sound like that.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The position of the guest in the chair, what is, like, is there a proper height of their head to their chest, your chest, arm position?
Ideally, I like to get the hair, who said that? I like to get the hair as close to me as possible, so I'm jacking them up. Sometimes I'll sit down, but sometimes I could compromise my body position if I sit down. So I like to try to jack them up. And ultimately, I got to get in the best body position for this haircut. So when you see me moving her head, she'll be okay with that. If her hair looks great, she's not going to be like, well, like for 3 sections, he had me holding my head like that. You know what I mean? If she acts like that, you know? But I like to get as close as possible, so you'll see me bending, especially using my knees, because my mentor, he has a little condition called sciatica. And it's from years of doing this. I don't know if he told you guys about that when you were working with him, but it's from doing this. You know, and that's one of the things he stressed on me. Like sometimes when I would be cutting hair, he'd come up and just give me a little nudge behind with his knee, and it, because I would be like this, and over time it's not going to work. So you got to think about how can I spread my legs, get a little bit of distance, bend, and get myself in the best position possible, so I can do this for a little bit longer than just a few years. But I still like to be able to have the opportunity when I'm, Vidal Sassoon's age to cut hair and not be in so much pain that I can't do it anymore. That'd break my heart. But now they've kind of finished that corner, what you can see is a very gradual graduation. My goal is for it all just to lay beautifully, and really it could just be done. Like when I hit it with the dryer, to just lay just like that. So now as I get to the middle of the crown here, keep sectioning that hair with a slight bit of angle through here. And one of the things that I like to practice with hair cutters is just your comb control. So as you're working with your comb today, just working this little practice right here. See, and like have a race. Like let's go, see who can do it 10 times, who can do it. Switch direction, go the opposite way, and just like race. It just gets your fingers nimble. Because those little things when you're sectioning hair, then when you're cutting hair, all of that is just as important, if not more important than the actual this. This is the easy stuff. So as I'm working through the hair, and I watch, my mentors cut hair, and as you guys are watching, those are the things I would be pay attention to. The control of the scissor, how I'm just moving my thumb to be able to control the cutting blade. Only one blade is designed to cut the hair. It's this one that my thumb's controlling. The other blade is just supposed to be there holding. And so when both blades move, sometimes we bend hair. Sometimes we push hair instead of cut hair. So when you start seeing those kind of things happen, and maybe both blades are moving, maybe I need to adjust. Getting myself out of the way, getting my fingers in a good position so I can actually work with my tools. When you see me do that, I'm just trying to make sure my thumb's out of the way and it's pointing down so I can stop. And I've got long fingers, so a lot of times I can want to cut past my second knuckle, and that's only going to compromise my haircut.
And why is that?
Main reason is control of that section of hair, the tension. Some people have like little gaps sometimes between there. But when you think about this, let me see, so if I take this piece of paper, I'm going to do origami real quick. Sorry, I'm folding up here now. We'll just pretend this is a really coarse piece of hair. Now when you hold it, hold your fingers out, when you hold your hair with, I want you to hold this as tight as you can. As tight as you can hold it? Pretty good. Alright. Yeah, start throwing up gang signs on me. Alright, now do it again. Hold those fingers out. Now when I put it here, it's going to be a little easier for me to slip through because there's that little gap right there. But when I put it here, she gets in between those knuckles, she can actually get more of a grip on it. And it's the same thing with your hair. It's going to slip through. So if you start, same thing with your comb, looser tension, tighter tension. So if I start cutting these sections with this side of the comb all of a sudden for whatever reason, I'm going to change my haircut. I'm going to start having less tension, more tension. So when I'm cutting the hair, I'm cutting it all with the same size teeth. I'm cutting to the second knuckle. All of those little things are going to help me get even tension. And again, when you start looking at your haircuts, when we do haircuts, a lot of times in our training, we don't do any refinement because I just want to see the raw shape. And then let's cut it again. Let's do the same haircut 6, 7, 8, 9 times before we ever refine it, because refinement it's just detailed work. Everyone has a little bit of a different flair, but when you're doing a lot of refinement all the time, that's probably a signal that you may need to work on your hair cutting. You may need to work on taking smaller sections. You may need to work on controlling the hair a little bit better. Those are all signals when you're doing a lot of refinement. So now I'm pulling this one out, and I'm just over directing it just to that previous section. 2 knuckles worth. 2 knuckles worth. So it starts to get a little longer as I move further back because of my over direction, and as I move higher. Now when I move down the head shape, I start angling my fingers in so my fingertips are getting tighter to the head shape. And I get all the way down to the bottom. That's where my fingers will get the tightest. Still combing up and then combing down. Get my fingers in there, checking for my guide. And because there's shoulders right there, I got to kind of come in and just get what I can get in there. If I can only get the first 1/4 to 1/2 inch of my scissors in there, that's all I can fit.
So you don't stress about what you can't fit at the moment?
Mm-mm. Just let it ride.
What
And
size
that-
are your shears?
What's that?
What size are your shears?
These are 5.
5.5s?
Oh, actually, these are 6. And the other pair that I have, these are 5.5s. I'll use these actually quite a bit more on these haircuts. I mean, there's a 1/2 inch difference, but does it make a difference? A little bit smaller, a little bit more control. But between 6 and lower, that's usually what I stick with. I even have some that are 5. When you're getting real tight and short work, like when you see like Vidal's, his were like probably 5 inch.
I use 5s, and I find when I do switch back to my 6s, I have no control over them.
Yeah, that longer blade, I mean, it's nice for like the longer layers and things like that. When you start working on these like shorter graduations, that's when you need a little bit more control. So I've got really one more section, and I'm going to be like right going over the center back. And then I'm going to jump onto the other side. So this section's almost turning into a straight vertical section right through the center back. Still section away, so I pick up into my previous, pull it out, check for the guide. And the hard thing when your finger's down like this is keeping this elbow up, because gravity is pulling your arm down. And what you notice is as you're working through here, you'll notice that your shoulder starts to get a little pain in there when you're doing it right. Head down some. Thank you. But when you're doing it right, you're doing it right. So you want some pain for it to be right. You want some pain and you have to like redo it right. Last little bit right here. So this, like there's a shoulder again, so I can only get in there with the tips of my scissors and then just clean off the rest of that, and I'm okay with that. And that takes it right down into the hairline. And I'm liking it, and I'm just checking the shape as I come through and cut that. So now that that side's done, I'm gonna just bring her head fully straight. And like sometimes when the guests are sitting, you know, they're like, well, you know, do I need to uncross my legs? I mean, they can. I don't really stress that though. I'm more concerned with where their spine is, where their shoulders are, and then I make a T. So I'm making sure their head's, you know, perpendicular so I can adjust their head. If they feel comfortable with their legs crossed, that's cool. Will that adjust their body? Yes, but guess what? I can adjust their head still. It's not like if they cross their head, just ruin my haircut. You know, I ruined my haircut. So I just got to be aware of their head position, and if I need it to move, I need it to move. So, you know, I've had guests do that. They're like, well, aren't you, like it's like, if you sit too close to the TV, you're gonna go blind, right? Like, I mean, no, you're not. My mom told me that too. But I can adjust their head, just know that. And when I do adjust their head, I'm adjusting their head so it fits. Now this is kind of cool. We can kind of see what that would look like as it kind of overhangs this other side. You can get an idea of the disconnection. Now the top looks like it already has grown longer, right? That's where disconnections start to become fun, when you can actually make her hair look longer, even though I just cut a bunch of hair off. So I'm just going to take this right up through the parietal. We're going to work into this other side. Because I think one of the challenges you know, with that bulk is maybe removing some more of the weight from the side and still keeping plenty of length through here. But it won't be as bulky when it doesn't have as big of a wall underneath it of hair. So that's going to be one of the ways that we collapse the shape a little bit. But still keep it in mind, like I want her hair to look still really long in the front. So I'm just going to comb this out of my way. And where I'm at is right on the corner of the recession. So right where that hairline changes position, that's where I'm sectioning off from. So I can see that's my target right there. If I need to, give it a little lift, move it over. And then just make sure I keep the moisture going here, because it's been sitting for a little while. So I need some control over it. That's going to be another thing, especially when it comes to curly hair and tension. If you cut half of the head and it's semi-wet and the other half semi-dry, you are in trouble. Because you're going to have way different lengths because that hair springs way more. Now on this side, I'm going to go fingers up. Same thing. Natural combing is this. If I go fingers up. So the main thing when I have you flip your fingers, it's to make you comb a different direction. It's not to make you feel uncomfortable. The main reason you don't switch fingers is because you feel comfortable this way. But if you do this whole thing like this, think about this for a second. If I were to do this whole thing fingers up, I'm going to be combing this way the whole way through. So when I get to this side, her whole haircut's going to be asymmetrical. It's all going to be longer going the opposite way. And when you think about my one side always, it's because you may have went the same way all the way through the back, and then it always ends up a little heavier on this side or a little heavier on that side. That's going to be a warning. It's going to be kind of a little aha right there. So when I switch it up, my sections still stay the same, but my finger position changes. Therefore my combing changes. Therefore my over direction changes. So now I'm picking up, and I'm always still, just like I was doing earlier, tip your head over there a little bit. I'm still combing into my previous section or towards my guide, which I don't have one yet. So I'm doing this first one. And so now my body position changes, my finger position changes. So I'm bending so I can look at my section a little bit, but my combing still goes the same way. I'll put that first little line in there. Next section. And this is my more comfortable side. That's why I started the opposite way, because I'm a right-hander. So this is my more comfortable body position, is when I'm cutting fingers up, cutting down. Usually for right-handers. This one's a little more work. That's why I just get it out of the way first. Get the pain out of the way first. And then this side is a little easier, so I can work a little bit quicker, a little bit more comfortable for me. Still looking at that guide. Still cutting down. Still angling the fingers, which you'll be able to see when I hold the chair like this. So my finger angle to create graduation, because I'm pulling the hair at 90, I'm just doing that. So cutting hair at 90 is great when you're doing a head of hair that's pretty dense, because I can create a leaner shape when I use vertical sections, and I have the control of exactly how much weight I leave in the head or take out of the head, because I can control exactly how much of an angle I put with my fingers. Now on this side, what's going to be important is I get that elbow in the air, and I'm cutting from top to bottom. Same thing. So now, do a couple this way, so you can see the body position from this side. So it's still a little vertical, slight bit of diagonal in the sectioning. And then just pushing this hair back. I'm not ready to cut yet. But the main thing, when you think about precision, You know, I always think, I mean, I was in the military. I was a United States Marine Corps sniper for some years. So we had to be really precise when you're shooting at something from 8 football fields away. You're trying to hit them with something that's that big. It's all about precision. So think about what you do, right? You do just as dangerous. You're just not, I was away, I was out in the woods doing it. We're up close with a deadly weapon, right? Take somebody out in a second. So we gotta be precise. We gotta be just as precise. So in this area right here, as I'm working, again, it's just keeping that finger angle, and I'm cutting in at that angle. I'll take my next section and just move that hair away. And when I started really having a lot of fun is when I really started getting into the bone structure, understanding finger angle, body position. That's when I actually started having fun with haircutting. Before then, it was always so stressful when I had to do a short haircut. Like, oh gosh, shortcut, here we go. It's gonna be a pain. And I knew like 1 or 2 tricks. But as you start to get more comfortable in understanding, you become, one of my mentors, Robert Labetta, he said, you know, when it finally clicked, he felt great because he would go, if he was doing a photo shoot or he was doing some kind of session work or anybody walked in the salon, he knew it didn't matter what came in the door, he could totally dominate a head of hair. Because when he really understood about moving weight around the head shape, that's when haircutting really became fun for him. And I think that's the way it is for a lot of us as haircutters. Once we really start understanding it, then you can just have fun. Then it's like, cool, all right, you got no hair in your head, you want to have something? I got you. You got tons of hair, you don't know what to do with it, it's too unruly, I got you. You know, you start to really own it. And then once you start to own it, the best way to learn anything is teaching it. That's really why I started teaching. So get with a partner. You guys, if you have any downtime or you're working, you know, on something, as soon as you learn something, teach it to someone else. And when we work today, we're going to practice that because you guys are going to be with partners and you're going to have the opportunity to teach them. They'll teach you. We'll teach each other.
When did it really click for you? Like how far?
Scary to say. Who said that?
Last year.
Yeah, right? Just today. I just learned something. I mean, every single haircut, but when I really started to become comfortable, I was probably a few years out of school. And I was out of school a cutting specialist, right? Some fancy title they gave me. I didn't earn it. I wasn't special about anything. I was maybe cutting special ed because I didn't know anything. But they gave me this fancy title and I felt like, oh my God, these people are paying money for me and they think I know everything about haircutting. I know nothing. So I had to really bust my ass and get in the classroom in the dark like this. I used to be in the garage, a bucket, like one of those big gallon garbage pails full of water, a cooler full of Corona, 8, 9, 10, 12 heads in the garage, little music, nobody else but me on a Sunday afternoon, hot summer Sunday, everyone's fun day, Sunday, beach day. I'm in there dunking heads, putting them on a mannequin, working it out. Didn't even blow dry, I threw it over there. Dunk the next one, do it again, work it out. So in the dark, I did the work. And then all of a sudden I show up on a stage somewhere and people think, but they missed it. They didn't see you guys in here all day on a Monday. They didn't see you all day yesterday, all last night. They didn't see what you did in the dark, but it then showed up in the light. But I fast-tracked it because in those 3 years, I was busting my ass behind the scenes. You know, so that's a big thing if you're trying to like, okay, when is it going to click? It can be short or long. It can take a long time or a short time. It just depends on how much work you're willing to put in the dark to really understand the craft. And there's only that one way, you know, is you got to do the work. So it's cutting head after head after head after head after head after head. I mean, we have, you know, little hidden nooks and crannies in the salons that have just mannequin heads that I sometimes see and I'm like, oh, I remember you. You're 2006, 12 a.m. on a Saturday night. You know, like we have them because some of them have a little bit of hair left on them, so we can keep them around. But all of these heads, I mean, that's the only way. It's just cutting head after head after head after head. And all of the guys that we look up to, that we see out there, the DJ Muldoons of the world, the Takashi Kitamuras of the world, you know, they work on a lot on mannequins. You know, just really perfecting the craft. Because that's what it is. And most of the haircuts that they've done, you'll never see. Because they're on a mannequin somewhere. It was a practice, it was a theory. They tested it. Our mentor, the godfather of them all, Vidal Sassoon, I mean, he worked on one haircut trying to understand these principles that he was putting together for 9 years. One haircut, 9 years. And then sometimes we go to premiere, and after a weekend, we don't even try that one more time, and we're like, we think we got it. So you have to think about, like, when we go in and put in the work, then the results will start to catch up. The one thing I will say, though, about doing the work, there is a lag time. So the work that you're putting in today, the effort that you're putting in today, the work that you're putting in today, the results may lag a year behind. You know, so those by the time I got to probably my 5th year, I started really feeling like I was confident, like I really understood it. I mean, I've been kind of, you know, faking it till you make it, that kind of thing, for a long time. But once I got to that like 5th year, I really started. I mean, I was cutting tons and tons of hair, and I was teaching it every chance I got. I really started to. The principles started to come in, and they started to take ownership inside my brain. But yeah, tons of mannequin work, tons of practice, tons of free haircuts. I mean, I still have at least, I always keep at least 1 or 2 people that I cut their hair for free, just so I can practice, because they don't pay, they have no say. So when they come in the salon, you know, my girl Tessa, when she comes in the salon, she doesn't know what she's gonna get. You know, she might have gray hair, she might have no hair. Next time she comes in, I might just buzz all her hair off. But she doesn't know. I mean, I'm always gonna make sure she looks amazing. But the reason why is so I can always have a muse, I call her my muse, because I can practice different techniques and keep my shape tight. Because I know when I don't cut hair for, like, you know, a few weeks or something, if I'm on some kind of mission and I don't get to cut some hair, I can feel it. It's just like going back in the gym after you've been gone for a couple months. You're like, ooh, dang, what did I do? Oh, I'm so tight. Day 2, right? It's the worst. Day 3 is like even worse. Then finally you get back in the groove. It's the same thing, because this is a muscle. It's a muscle memory that we have to constantly exercise. You know, and you look at somebody that does a lot of scissor over comb. You know, I remember when I was working, you know, a lot of barbering, you know, I look at my hands. Even now, I mean, this muscle is bigger than this. This is flatter, because this, it works, and it gets swollen, and it gets strong. Cut hair, have strong hand.
That's weird.
Right. Everyone's like inspecting their hands. But yeah, you gotta put in the work. You gotta put in a lot of work. And if you find like haircutting truly is your passion, you know, then that's gonna be the thing that's gonna separate from the rest. You know, a lot of people start a race. A lot of people finish a race, but why doesn't everyone that starts at the same time, which is usually everyone, finish at the same time? You know, it's just not the way that it works. So just because I went to school with people, or you went to school with people, you all started the same day, but you're all going to end up at different points based on effort, based on work that everyone put in. You know, and you go back and you look, and that's really what it came down to. You made a decision. Like, I missed, did I sacrifice? Yeah, you're going to have to, though. If it's something you really want to excel at, you know, you're not going to be at the beach every Sunday. You're not going to, you know, sometimes.
Or get 8 hours of sleep.
What's that?
Or get 8 hours of sleep.
Oh, yeah. That's not an option.
You had enough sleep before you came in today, right?
Oh, yes. What's your name again? I'm just kidding. So I'm working through the back, and now I'm starting to get right into the middle again. So this is where I'm starting to join 1 and 2. So when I pick these up, I can see I've got my first guide, and it's connecting right into my second guide. And that's when things get exciting, because I'm okay, I'm joined in. So we're doing symmetry through here, and then the top is going to be asymmetrical